Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about the common question that I always get. Will this ruin my brush pen? Now, if any of you have ever bought brush pens before, you know that they are not cheap. They can be an investment, and especially with the really good brands. So whenever I use my brush pens, I always get concerns about, won't that ruin your brush pen? So I would love to address all those concerns in this video, and I will ruin mine so you don't have to ruin yours. I'm going to be using Caran markers and Tombow markers to demo, but a lot of these rules apply to other brush pens as well. So can paper affect your brush pen nibs? And the answer is yes, they absolutely can. I definitely recommend using a smooth paper. If you use a watercolor paper or a paper with some tooth or rough texture, it can diminish the life of your pens. But I will say this as a side note. Some pens are extremely juicy and will not withstand on marker paper, especially if you are choosing to do some blending. So there are some exceptions. If you are super concerned, then stick to a very smooth paper. I use Canson XL marker paper, or there is a Rhodia dot pad, or any of the Rhodia pads are very smooth. There's also printer paper. I use HP Premium laser jet paper. It's super smooth too, so you can use that as well. And I know that I talk about making sure that you're using smooth paper, but there is one exception, and I believe that that is Caran markers. They are extremely durable. They have a nylon tip, and I have used my Caran markers only on watercolor paper for about 2 years, and I only have one that has frayed a bit, and that is my black marker, because I use it the most frequently. But I know that if I were to use my Caran markers on regular marker paper, when I were to blend, it would just tear through the paper. Now, can the way that you hold the pen affect the life of your nibs? And the answer is yes. Definitely. You want to make sure that you are angling your brush pen when you are writing. If you are holding your pen vertically, it's putting a ton of pressure at the nib tip, and it will ruin it or just decrease the life of the pen. So just make sure that you are holding your pen correctly and at an angle. But also, if you're doing brush lettering, then you would want to hold your pen at an angle, because you shouldn't be holding it vertically while doing brush lettering, because you will not get the consistent thin upstrokes and thick downstrokes. So those go hand in hand, and those rules should be followed if you want to make sure that you don't ruin your nib. So will leaving your cap off completely ruin your pens? Now, I don't know about you, but I have definitely done this before, and you've been working hard on a project and you get distracted and go do something else, and then you come back and your pen is all dried out. But is it completely done? Let's definitely not give up all hope yet. I'm going to show you a couple ways that maybe you can salvage your pens to give them a little bit more life. So I have left the cap off of my pens for a little over 6 hours, and obviously I chose a color that I didn't really like as much, so I could, just in case I couldn't salvage it. But as you can see, they're both streaky and hardly have any ink left in them. And then to the left I have the original, what they looked like prior to me leaving the cap off. So with the Caran markers, what you are supposed to do is cap the marker and leave it vertical, cap down. So you need to find somewhere where you can put it to keep it completely vertical, and I'm going to leave mine overnight, and then you guys can see the results later on in this video. Now next up, I am going to put the Tombow pen vertical in a jar of water. Now I have some clothespins to make sure that they are not going to hit the bottom. If it is hitting the bottom, it might misshape the nib, so you definitely don't want to do that. Now, will mixing another color on the tip of the pen ruin a brush pen? And the answer to that is no, it will not, because pens, especially Karen markers and Tombos, are self-cleaning pens. So even if you, let's say, contaminate the pen with a different color, it will eventually come off anyways. You just have to scribble on the paper and it will wear off back to its original color. And this is actually one of the most common questions I get whenever I do any kind of blending is, oh my gosh, aren't you going to ruin the tip? Or you shouldn't be doing that. And I just want people to know that it's okay. These pens are made to do that. Even if you read the instruction manual, it gives you blending techniques which include putting another color onto a different colored nib. So it is perfectly fine, and as you can see, the color is going to go back to the original color anyways. So let's just say you did ruin your nib, or your nib was frayed. Don't go throwing those pens away quite yet. Now I know that they are expensive, so a couple things that you can do is still use the ink. You can use the ink in the pens by coloring on a piece of plastic or a ceramic dish, and then use another brush pen to pick up the color, and you'll have a lovely blend, just similar to what I was doing. Then some of the nibs can be switched out and replaced. So you can always look it up, whatever brand you have, and you can always get some tweezers and pull out the nib. Some have a nib on the other side, so you can just flip it the other way and it's perfectly fine. But other nibs can be replaced. Another thing you can do is use them for practice. So frayed brush pens are good for practice because you don't have to worry about wasting all your ink just on practice. Now keep in mind that the nib probably won't produce those nice thin upstrokes, but you can still get some practice in with them. There's also a technique where you can dip the nib of your pen into some water so you get like a light to dark ombre effect. And I get people concerned that that will ruin the nib too, but again, do not worry, it will not ruin the nib of the pen because eventually the ink will work its way back down again and it will be the nice vibrant color that it started out as. Okay, so let's test these out. So let's just do the Karen marker first. I had it sitting capped down vertically overnight, and let's see how that worked. Wow, yeah, that worked actually really well. So it is back to normal, which is good, and that's one thing about the Karen markers that I know is that even if you do leave off the cap, you won't ruin your markers as long as you just take care of it, put it cap down, and then let it sit vertically, and then you can bring your marker back to life. Now let's try out the Tombow marker, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for this, but if you think about it, if your pen is already frayed, or if it's already, you left your cap off and so it's not working right in the first place, it doesn't really hurt to try this, because you're either going to have a pen that is writing like this, or you might as well try something to see if it works. So I left that in there overnight, and yes, the water is now colored with this color ink, but I'm telling you that it's not going to ruin your pen. So let's take this off. I'm just gonna dry it a bit. And now when you first write, you might think, oh, see, it didn't work because there's no color in there, but you just have to pretty much get the water off, and then the pen will go back to the normal shade, which could take a little while because it was submerged in water. But as you can tell, it's not writing dry like this, it is writing moist. So what I am going to do is now leave the cap on, and I'm going to leave it facing down, cap facing down, just for a little bit to see if that helps. Okay, now let's try this out. So as you can see, the more that I write, the color starts to come back. So obviously we just dipped it in water for a long time and submerged it there, so you do have to give it time for the color to come back. But it is not leaving any of these streaky marks like before, like it was dried out. So I think that's a step in the right direction. So as you can see, we have salvaged our brush pen. And also, if your pen is like this, then what do you have to lose anyways? It's either writing like this or maybe either a little bit lighter, but eventually the color will come back. It just takes time because gravity and the water needs to work its way out. But now the tip is moist and you can write without streaks. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully I can help you make sure that you keep your nibs in good condition. I know that brush pens can be an investment, and I would hate for you to purchase your pens only to ruin them on the first use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.